Today on Locked On Red Wings, Nicklas Lidstrom has been named the best Swedish player of all time by the Swedish Hockey Federation. And we're going to talk about that and, in our opinion, the 5 greatest moments in Nick Lidstrom's tenure as a Detroit Red Wing.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm a podcast producer for the Daily JWWJ News Radio podcast, while Scotty is a freelance journalist for the Detroit News, as well as the host of Locked On Tigers. And today we got a more exciting episode for you guys, a little bit of shifting of gears. We call this in the industry an evergreen episode. But it is, whenever I have the opportunity to talk about my idol growing up, Nick Lidstrom, I'm going to take it. And over the weekend, he was named by the Swedish Ice Hockey Association the best Swedish hockey player of all time. They put together an all-time Swedish hockey team. Peter Forsberg, Matt Sundin, Håkan Loob, Nicklas Lidstrom, and Björn Salming, and Henrik Lundquist in net. And that is, one esteemed company to be in, but then
what a squad.
The best of the best out of them. I can't say I disagree with it. I'm sure some people will say that if Peter Forsberg hadn't been hampered with injuries, he could have been number one. But just the not that we needed the validation, not that we needed the recognition for something that I think the vast majority of the population already admits and knows, but for him to be named the best Swedish hockey player of all time by Sweden is a nice little accolade to his already stacked trophy case.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's like you said, it's an excuse to talk about one of the most beloved athletes in the history of this city for any sports team in the history of the city of Detroit. And yeah, it's something that's so unique about hockey that I love is just that the fact that there are so many different countries that fuel over to the NHL and become like prominent athletes and stuff. And it's a really cool thing to be able to do that and have the Worlds and have the Olympics and all that. Like that's not something that for at least the wide variety of countries that hockey spans across. It's something that not too many other sports, soccer obviously, but the prominent sports in America, it's really kind of, dare I say, one of a kind of the 4 big ones in America.
Yeah, absolutely, man. He was my idol growing up, and I can't say enough good things about him. Nobody can. I mean, depending on who you ask, he's the perfect. That's why his nickname was the perfect human.
His nickname literally perfect.
And depending on who you ask, he is the best defenseman to have ever played the game at any country, at any level. Well, some people will still respond with
objective.
Yeah. People will still say Bobby Orr, and let them listen. What Bobby Orr did, he reinvented what it means to be a defenseman. He won 8 Norris trophies. Nick Lidstrom won 7, and he created the breed of offensive defensemen that didn't exist before Bobby Orr.
For sure.
So what he did to the game was huge, but Nicklas Lidstrom, what he did to the game as well, was, I would say, equivocal to what Bobby Orr did. And Nicklas
there's
Lidstrom,
a difference between like impact and performance. Like if you're just talking like obviously Orr is revolutionary and it was a trailblazer and paved the way for so many others, but that doesn't automatically make him number one ever forever either.
Lidstrom was the best defenseman in hockey for 20 years. He didn't start getting recognition until after he was 30. His 7 Norris trophies came after the age of 30, which is
repeated twice, and he did it all after the age of 30.
That's where the argument is one, their styles were different, but also, well, Bobby Orr just lit a trail, just was a trailblazer for 10 or 11 straight years, however long it was. Nicklas Lidstrom was the epitome of defensive defenseman, locked the house down for 20. and he hit 1,000 points as a defensive.
Right.
Like that's where the argument's there. And I understand why some people will, side with Bobby Orr, but for my intents and purposes and my own bias, it's Nick Lidstrom every single day. And when you're talking about pure defensemen, it's Nick Lidstrom without a doubt. So Scotty and I have compiled our list, and this one, normally we come with our own list, 5 each, and it's not really in any particular order. But for this one, we felt like we should do 5 top moments from 5 to 1 in order of what the best Nick Lidstrom moments are. And some of them are going to be obvious. I'm not going to lie about that because Nick Lidstrom had some, groundbreaking moments in his career. And so we're going to talk about that. And we're going to start with number 5 here. And number 5 is a more, not so one moment, but a compilation of moments, Scotty. He kind of set one of those, sometimes players do something and they go, wow, that was a lucky play. It was really cool for the highlight reel. And then they do it a few more times and you're going, okay, maybe this is not luck and more of skill/trend. And Nick Lidstrom's goals from center ice kind of became almost a trend by the end of his career. And he had 3 distinct ones that stick out in my mind. He had the very famous one in 2002 against the Vancouver Canucks that really turned around that series for the Detroit Red Wings. They were sluggish until that goal happened. And he had another one against the Predators in 2008 from center ice. And then I can't remember if this one happened again in 2008 against the Penguins or 2009 against the Penguins, but he took the shot from a neutral zone faceoff. It went off the backboards. It was at Joe Louis because I remember watching this one, because I was old enough to actually watch and observe the game at this point. Born in 96. Sorry if I make anyone feel old, but it came off the backboards, off of Florian into the net for the goal. So he made a habit of shooting the puck on net or just barely missing for the rebound off the boards. And he did that more than just the goals. He did that from the blue line as well, where he would shoot the puck off Joe Louis's lively boards for the rebound out front. And it's one of those things where it kind of speaks to his hockey IQ. There's a little bit of luck that comes from those goals from center ice, but slap shot accuracy from center ice is hard to come by. Slap shot accuracy in general is hard to come by. But then included in there is the idea and the IQ from your own blue line to use the boards as a pseudo pass out in front of the net. That's why it's number 5. It's a compilation of several, but the man is just a machine at taking shots from center ice and from his own blue line.
Yeah, no, I think the biggest thing that comes out of those is something you said there, where it just is a lot of it is just a testament to hockey IQ, and not that every single one, whether, and again, like you said, a lot of them were started off as passes, and he did it a lot of the time as passes as well. And it's something that when we see it today, when somebody does it, it's like, oh my goodness, that was a really cool thing. And while it wasn't like a gamely occurrence, he made it somewhat normal. And that's a play and a idea that's not is not normal. And that is not something that everybody in the game of hockey just does. It's not something you see every night across the entire league, nonetheless, just with the Red Wings anymore. So yeah, that's to be able to, again, I don't want to say trademark, it's not like it was something he was doing, every period or night in and night out or whatever, but for him to even somewhat make that type of play relatively normal is nothing short of incredible.
Yeah, and that goal against the Canucks, which was his first notable one of his career, was against Dan Cloutier. So yeah, that was a big embarrassing moment for Cloutier and a huge moment for the Red Wings. As if I recall correctly, in that series, they were not playing well up until that point. So he's phenomenal. Scotty, why don't you take us number 4 here?
You want me to do 4? We have time to do 4 right now?
We got time to do 4. Let's do it.
Okay. So September 15th, 2010 is where I'm going to take you to, when Nick Lidstrom scores his first career hat trick. I think that's one of everybody's, when you talk about feel good moments in the career of really, I guess, anybody, but when you're talking about the moments that made you just happy to be a Red Wings fan, that one really sticks out as just one of, and because it was an empty netter and we kind of was able to soak it in after at the end, right? It was I don't know, that one just really sticks out as one of the more heartwarming. Obviously, very skilled too as a defenseman to log a hat trick, but just a very heartwarming, like feel good moment for him to do that. In his final season at 40.
I mean, this is a guy who, to that point, had accomplished everything in his career except for a hat trick. Because, as noted earlier in this segment, he was a defensive defenseman, the best at it, but he was a defensive defenseman. He got a lot of assists. I mean, this is a guy who had registered over 1,000 points in 1,500 games played. So that's over a half point per game his entire career. He did produce offense. I don't want to make it seem like he didn't do that, but he didn't score a lot of goals. His career high in goals for a regular season was 20. So it's not like he was a huge goal scorer, but he got a lot of assists. Sure. But that hat trick was one of the few things that he didn't have in his career. And so far in his final season, for him to finally get it in a 5-2 win over the St. Louis Blues, happened December 15th, 2010. Yeah. It was a regular strength, even strength. Regular strength and even strength are the same. Even strength, power play, and empty net goal. So he kind of got one out of everywhere. And you could say the empty net goal is a little bit of a gimme, but you're not going to take anything away from Nick Lidstrom scoring a hat trick. So that was a really exciting moment to see. Not. And it was a cherry on top of what was already not even a Hall of Fame career, a greatest of all time career from the back end. He was, God, I love this man so much. I could talk forever about him. Perfect human. So, when we come back, we'll go through 3 through 1 and then just finish off also talking about honorable mentions. Honorable mentions mostly include just other accolades, not necessarily moments, but just gushing about him continuously. But before we get to that, we got to talk to you guys today about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. They've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Nicklas Lidstrom is the best Swedish hockey player to have ever lived, to have ever played the game. And that's not my opinion. That's objective fact after the Swedish Hockey Association named him the best Swedish hockey player of all time. So we're giving you our top 5 moments of Nicklas Lidstrom's career. We've done 5 and 4 in segment 1. We're going to move on to segment 3 here. Segment 3 comes courtesy of the first goal in Game 4 of the 1997 Stanley Cup Finals against the Philadelphia Flyers, in which the Red Wings had oppressive offensive zone pressure, but were not finding the back of the net with under a minute left to play. Kirk Mulpey gets the puck along the board, skates towards the center of the zone, and then drops the pass back to Nicklas Lidstrom, who unleashes a bomb from the point to put the Red Wings up 1-0. They end up winning that game 2-1 off the back of a Darren McCarty magical goal, but it could not have begun without Nick Lidstrom's bomb from the point with 30 seconds left in the first period to put them up 1-0. Absolutely electric from Nick Lidstrom.
Yeah, the blast, man. Like that was it. That was the play. And there's, in a career, even as a defenseman, in a career that was defined by so many great plays and great feats, to really be able to pinpoint one specific goal as like, this is probably the best goal of his career. I mean, I guess that's up for debate, but I don't know. I think that's also a relatively clear-cut answer. It's certainly one of them. And to just be able to point to, I guess, whether you want to talk about, like we said, number 5, like one of the ones against Pittsburgh or whatnot, like that's certainly up for debate. But I just, it's so incredible to me to look across one of the greatest careers in the history of the National Hockey League and truly be able to pinpoint 1 or 2 goals as like, yeah, these are probably better than all the rest that he scored, even as a defender that wasn't logging super high goal totals. Like it's unreal, man. And yeah, that one, as far as magnitude, as far as just the shot in general, was an absolute laser. Pretty much any criteria you use to grade a goal, they were all in that one.
Yeah, I mean, slap shots are kind of a dying breed in professional hockey anymore because of their inaccuracy. The game's all about possession and control. So teams are unwilling to take as many slap shots. Well, you saw Jake Wallman do the other day. You don't see that much anymore. The fact that Nick Lidstrom is able to unleash a slap shot of that velocity, that power, and that accuracy, because slap shots inherently aren't that accurate. You're sacrificing accuracy for power and speed. But the fact that he's consistently able to take slap shots from the point with that amount of accuracy is incredible. And it's an underrated thing about his game that I don't think people talk enough about. I mean, put it simply, he's the best Swedish hockey player of all time and probably one of the two best defensemen of all time, no matter what side of that fence you're on. He's one or two. There's no three in that conversation. He's one or two. He's one in our books. He's one to us.
He's one.
Absolutely.
You want to go to number 3?
We're already on number 3.
You want to go to number 2?
Yeah, let's go to
That's
number
what
2.
I meant to say. I think for this one, I think it's hard. Like, number 1 is kind of a slam dunk and like a really cool moment, but this one was.
It's equally as cool.
This one was number 1 before number 1.
Yeah.
Like, this one was was such an awesome moment. And I think just him winning the Conn Smythe in 2002 is something that is a phenomenal accomplishment. And not only just the moment of him like getting the award and getting honored like that, but to the other side of the coin, like on the ice, just that series alone, watching those games, it's clear cut as well. Like it's not a up for debate thing. It's not something that I feel like is too debatable, I guess. Like he was dominant, and it was just cool to see on an unbelievable hockey team all around, one of the greatest rosters in the history of the sport, for him to get the Conn Smythe after it was all said and done is just an awesome moment.
I mean, I believe, and somebody can check me if I'm wrong on this, but I think he was the first European to ever win the Conn Smythe. I know, obviously, he was the first European captain to ever win the Stanley Cup, but I think he might have been the first European to ever win the Conn Smythe. I might be wrong on that. I might be completely mistaken. But he, regardless, was that postseason he put together in 2002 was absolutely incredible. And I have the stats up here. And one of these stats surprised me more than the rest of them did. It shouldn't, knowing Nick Lidstrom and what he's capable of. But in 23 games played in the 01-02 playoffs, he put 16 points up on the board. I mean, again, we talk about him as a defensive defenseman. His offensive production shouldn't be overlooked either. I mean, 16 points in 23 games by a defenseman is incredible. 5 goals, 11 assists. And this is the first time he had that incredible of a postseason. You look at 97-98 when they went back-to-back, and he had 19 points in 22 games. He is consistently, when it came down to it, put the team on his back from the back end on both sides of the ice. And then the stat that surprised me the most out of all the point totals is the fact that he averaged 31 minutes and 10 seconds of ice time in the 2001-2002 Stanley Cup playoffs. If there's ever any doubt that he does not deserve that 02 Conn Smythe, it's extinguished when you look at the fact that he averaged over half the playing time on the ice per game. Averaged. That is the perfect human. Nick Lidstrom, man, I can't. He's so good, Scotty.
He is. No, that's an unbelievable stat. That's a ridiculous stat. And again, like being on that roster specifically, like again, that's one of the greatest rosters in the history of the NHL. Like some people argue the greatest. And for him to play over 30 minutes on that roster, like that's not human, but also the perfect human.
Yeah, he's right, exactly. Inhuman, superhuman, the perfect human. When we come back, we'll get to the honorable mentions and then give you the obvious number 1. But first, I got to talk to you guys today about SimpliSafe. If you've thought about securing your home with home security, but have been putting it off, you'll want to listen up. Right now, Locked On Red Wings listeners can order the #1 rated SimpliSafe home security system for 50% off. This is their biggest offer of the year, and you won't want to miss it. Here's why you're going to love it. SimpliSafe was named the best home security system of 2022 by U.S. News and World Report. A third year in a row. In an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use Fast Protect technology exclusively from SimpliSafe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat is real, so you can get priority police response. 24/7 professional monitoring service costs less than $1 a day, less than half the price of ADT's traditional professionally installed system. With a top-rated SimpliSafe app, stay in complete control of your system anytime, anywhere. Arm or disarm, unlock for a guest, access your cameras, or adjust system settings. Don't miss your chance to save big on the security system that Locked On Red Wings recommends. Get 50% off any SimpliSafe system at simplisafe.com/LockedOnNHL. This is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. That's simplisafe.com/LockedOnNHL. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. We're celebrating Nick Lidstrom's coronation as the best Swedish hockey player of all time by giving you our top 5 Nick Lidstrom moments. A lot of them are pretty obvious because he had a very accolade-laden career that was topped off by some incredible moments. Before we get to the probably obvious #1, Scotty, let's talk about some of the honorable mentions. And they're not so much individual moments, but are just him being Nick Lidstrom throughout his entire career.
Yeah, impressive feats, I think, are probably the category, because it's hard to consider these specific moments, but he accomplished so much that I think it's important to highlight other stuff too. One of my favorite ones was him joining the Triple Gold Club. I think that that's a very, again, when we talk about hockey and how there is a lot of pride from like your home country and whatnot, that is something that you can accomplish in hockey. That is a very big deal when you do. And him officially gathering all 3 of those after 2006, I think is a really cool moment.
Yeah, obviously the World Championship, Olympic gold, and the Stanley Cup.
Sweden was supposed to, like, that was a team that got upset in 2002 as well, and then like had to come back and had, like the revenge tour type of stuff, and yeah, took care of business in 2006. That's a super cool moment for a lot of reasons for that country, and obviously a very big deal for Lindstrom as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's just, I mean, what hasn't he won? We talk about it. We talked about it with the hat trick. What hasn't he won? He's been absolutely phenomenal. Another thing, and we mentioned it earlier, 7 Norris trophies. He won 3 in a row, then 3 in a row again. And then if he had continued playing, he has probably a legitimate shot. I mean, he won his final one at 41 years old. Yeah. What's to say he wouldn't have won an 8th one to tie Bobby Orr's record? He's just every step of the way.
Three-peating twice is crazy. Three-peating twice in a decade.
After he's age 30.
Right.
After what a lot of people are considered out of their prime.
In a 10-year stretch, three-peating twice is nuts.
Over 1,500 games played, 20 years with the Detroit Red Wings. How many points did he have? 1,200 points, something like that. He had 11, maybe a little over 1,100. He just everything you could think of could be an accomplishment. Multiple All-Star teams. The guy is
he missed like no games. He missed like 30 games his entire career or something ridiculous. Not even.
Yeah, you want to talk about 1,500 games played, missing less than 30 in those 20 years is next to impossible. So not only was he the best of the best, he was the best of the best every day for 20 years.
Ability is availability.
Yeah, right.
He was certainly available.
He was certainly available. So there can't be enough said, man. Every step of the way. Let's get on to #1, Scotty. I don't know if you wanna take this away for us.
Sure. I did too, but I can take one.
Oh, that's fine.
I think
I lost our flow, but it's
trying
fine.
to choreograph. Yeah. I think it's fairly obvious, but him just being the captain on a Stanley Cup winning team is, I think, bar none, the number one moment in his career. And just that moment of hoisting the cup and everything, that's, man, certainly one of the highlights of my childhood. I know it's the highlight of a lot of childhoods and a lot of just whatever age you were, a lot of adulthoods too, I'm sure. But yeah, that moment specifically is just a very iconic moment in not only the lore of the Detroit Red Wings, which is one of the most storied franchises there are, but the lore of the city of Detroit at this point.
Yeah, first European to ever hoist the cup as captain of a National Hockey League team. And it was, I mean, there are so many cherry on tops. At that time, that was the cherry on top. And then 2010 comes around, he gets the hat trick that nobody thought he would ever get. Or
Right.
not that they didn't think he would get, but it would expect of him to have gotten. Like, not something he
It,
needed,
wouldn't have
but
been
nice.
a big deal at all if he never got one.
Yeah,
Like, no one would have
exactly.
cared. But, like, he got one anyway because he's
Yeah.
Lidstrom. Like,
Because why not?
why
So,
not?
dude's just an absolute freak, man. I love him so much. And I wish.
I'm glad he's like, I don't want to. I know there were some worries about the Red Wings front office being kind of like the old
Old boys
timers
club.
club where it's just like all like former Wings and stuff. But I'm glad that he's like back and intertwined with the front office and like helping people out. That's awesome.
All I got to say is, Nick Lidstrom, if you ever hear this, please come on our show. I'd love to interview. I'd love to interview you, man.
I'm sure he's watching an episode of his own top 5 career accolades. That
Let's see.
definitely sounds
He's
like that.
sitting back. Let's see if they get these right. Like, he's got his own top 5 in his head.
Right.
Oh, dude. I think that would be like a peak moment. I don't think anything would ever usurp me being able to interview Nicklas Lidstrom ever.
Yeah. I
think so.
mean, like, fair enough. Can't blame you for that one, yeah.
But yeah, I'm a fanboy, hardcore. There was one other thing. Obviously, guys, if you have moments that we didn't say, feel free to leave them in the comments. We didn't really talk about a lot of his big defensive moments. He had a lot of goals he saved by just being Nick Lidstrom.
Yeah, of course.
And so much of his play so much of his play was little. And it's why that doesn't sound right when I'm saying it, but he did little things right. But those little things don't get a lot of notice in everyday play. And that's why it took so long for him to get the recognition that he deserved, because nobody watches somebody consistently stop zone entries and be like, and put that in Sports Center top 10. You don't,
Right.
That doesn't make it. But night in and night out, he did it. So if there's like defensive plays we missed, or like times he saved goals that we missed that you guys want to have recognized, feel free to leave it in our comments. We might bring it up. We have another off day episode tomorrow. We do have to preview the game against Nashville, but hey, we'll bring it up. Maybe we'll do a part 2 of this as what you guys have brought up of things we have missed. So feel free to do that. And man, Scotty, it's just I love doing episodes like these. We don't get to do enough of them. We need more players to just get named the best of all time, so we can just do more lists like that. That was fun. That was a lot.
I mean,
of fun.
we talk about the right team for that to be possible a lot of days.
When I think about Nick Lidstrom, I'm like depressed that I didn't get to see his entire career.
I was like, where is this possibly heading?
But at the same time, super grateful that he stayed at the top form of his game and in his league for as long as he did. So I did get to see the second half of that career, because I was
like, you saw I mean, there's a legitimate argument that even though you saw him at like when he was older, like you maybe did see the peak, quote unquote, of his career. It's just his peak was from 30 to 41 instead of from 20 to 30, like a lot of other people.
I mean, because Yzerman retired when I was 10. Like, I don't have a lot of memories of watching Yzerman be
Yzerman
peak
retired when I think I would say like 6 or 7. I remember
Me too.
going to school that day and bawling, and like I remember it's like, I remember I was definitely like young elementary school.
Okay, this part of the conversation is going to piss a lot of people off. Talking about
whatever.
how young we are. But I remember when Lidstrom retired too, because I actually asked I can't remember what period it was, but my English teacher, like, hey, can we put this on the video projector because it was being live streamed on NHL.com. And I had a couple other hockey buddies of mine in class, and she actually let us do it. We got to watch his retirement press conference
that's super
at like
cool.
11 a.m. on a school day because she was cool with it. So, Mrs. Isaki, you were dope. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Shout out the dog.
Yeah, it was my favorite Red Wing of all time, hands down, not even close. And that's amongst a lot of all-time greats. So
absolutely best of the best on that Sweden team, and arguably best of the best on one of the more dominant modern era hockey teams in the history of the league as well. So just continues to be the cream of the crop.
So on that note, I guess we'll wrap it up here, and we'll continue this conversation and do a game preview tomorrow. Same time, same place. It's your team. Every day.
BetOnline.
That's what I was waiting for. I was waiting for that. Where's my mouse? Bye.